must leave every other idea alone. This is the way to success, and this is the way great spiritual giants are produced. Be a hero. Always say, I have no fear. With this wonderful spiritual inspirational quote by our legendary philosopher Swami Vivekananda, I would like to begin today's session. I am Madhushri, Assistant Professor of Management, also coordinator of the 7 Days International Faculty Development Program. First of all, I cordially welcome you all to the 5th day of International Online Faculty Development Program on New Paradigms in Management Education. Being successful in today's highly technological and globally competitive world requires a person to develop and use different set of skills than were needed before. Of these skills is called digital thinking. Digital thinking is a specific cognitive activities that designers apply during the process of designing. Design has been widely considered to be a central or distinguishing activity of engineering. However, design thinking has also started to receive increased attention in business setting. This is because the design of products and services is a major component of business competitiveness. To the extent that many known companies have committed themselves to becoming a design leaders. Although design thinking has become an integral part of the design and engineering field as well as business, it can also have a positive influence on 21st century education across disciplines because it involves creative thinking in generating solutions for problems. That is, in academic environments, students are required to read critically, think on reason logically, and solve complex problems. Thus, to help students to succeed in this interconnected digital world we live in, we the educators should support students in developing and sharpening 21st century skills such as design thinking, system thinking, and teamwork skills that enhance their problem solving skills and prepare them for higher studies and career. So today we have our resource person, Dr. Shivanandar Koteshwar, Design Group Digital Implementation Site Leader and R&D Head, Synopsys India, also entrepreneur and founder of Belakoo Trust, to share his valuable knowledge on introduction and application of design thinking in teaching and research. Now I request Mr. Pallavi, Assistant Professor of Management, coordinator of this 7 Days International Online Faculty Development Program, to welcome the gathering and to introduce today's resource person, Dr. Shivananda Koteshwar, to delegate participants. Over to Pallavi, madam.
Thank you, Madhushri. It's a brand new morning. The day is blank canvas to be painted with colors of wisdom. Good morning to all. Thank you to everyone who has joined us with this morning. Today marks the 5th day of our International Faculty Development Program on New Paradigms in Management Education. I'm extremely delighted to welcome you all. I feel content to welcome a man of effective leadership, discipline, someone who's very practical and realist. He is none other than our beloved principal and chief patron of the program, Dr. B. Chandrasekhara, sir. I welcome you to the program, sir. It has always amazed me how one can be extremely committed to their work. We have such a dedicated person among us today. I feel happy to welcome Dr. Shubha, madam, who is an IQSC coordinator and patron of this program. I welcome you, madam. I feel privileged to welcome our captain, who believes in teamwork and a true motivator, Manjula, madam, HOD Department of Management and convener of the program. A warm welcome to you, madam.
Thank you, Pallavi.
It's a moment of extreme pleasure to welcome the guest speaker, Dr. Shivanandar Koteshwar. Thank you so much, sir, for accepting our invitation and joining with us for this program. It warms my heart to welcome you to this program. I would give my regards and appreciation to our program organizing secretary and MBA coordinator, Mr. Kishore Kumar, who made this program a reality and is getting on the way to success. I cordially welcome you, sir. This program could have not been possible without the sheer contribution of you, Madhushri, madam. You are excellent in coordinating the program cheerfully. A warm welcome to you.
Thank you.
This program could have not been possible without all the teaching and non-teaching staff of the institution. A heartfelt welcome to one and all. A very warm welcome to the delegate participants who took out their valuable time and joined us today to be part of this program. We are honored to have you all with us. I once again welcome you all on behalf of the organizing committee and GFGC Vijayanagar, Bangalore to the 5th day of International Faculty Development Program. Now I request all the participants to put their videos on for the photo session that would help us in documenting the event. Kindly put your video on.
Shivananda sir, for a moment, can you stop sharing this screen for a while?
Sure.
Thank you, sir. Madhu madam, go ahead. Hello, ma'am, go ahead.
Now, I'm profoundly delighted to take an opportunity to introduce the resource person of the day. He is none other than Mr. Shivanandar Koteshwar, popularly known as Shivu. Dr. Shivanandar Koteshwar has over 25 years of experience in semiconductor industry. He is currently with Synopsys India as the Design Group Digital Implementation Site Leader and R&D Head. Shivu is a mentor of change, Atal Innovation Mission, Niti Aayog, Government of India, SIG member, ESSICE, Electronic Sector Skills Councils of India, Startup Mentor in MITI, Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, and IET Skill Development Working Group member. Shivu is extremely active in mentoring startups catering to EdTech and learning space. His startup portfolio includes Your Philanthropy Story, UltraDocs, Fab School, and Krida Loka. Shivu is the founder trustee of Belakoo Trust, focusing on rural education, skill development, and experiential learning. Shivu is one of the trustees in Ornico Trust with a flagship product, the Ornico Academy, a progressive K-12 school in Sarjapur Road with career-focused program in all streams. Shivu is a dedicated and passionate teacher who works with K2 schools, UG, PG, and MBA colleges to bridge the gap between academia and industry. He serves as visiting faculty in leading colleges, universities across India in both engineering, design, and management. Shivu, an adjunct professor in Dayanand Sagar University and ISBR. Shivu also serves as Board of Studies member in Mount Carmel College, BMS College, Indian Academy Degree College, MSRIT, Dr. MCT Pollachi, BNMIT, and VASA International. Shivu was the founding director of school, the Amartha Academy, and a professor in Electronics and Communication Department at PES University. He also served as an advisory board member at MS Ramaya University. Shivu has received doctorate in education management and is an alumnus of IIM Bangalore. Shivu has postgraduate diploma in innovation and design thinking, a collaborative program by MIT Sloan, Columbia Business School, and Tuck University. Shivu has master's degree in electrical engineering from OGI, USA, and BTech in electronic and communication from Mysore University. Shivu has completed various certification courses from Tier 1 business schools in USA and India. Shivu has derived inspiration from real life stories and all around him and has published 2 books titled 50 Shades of Life and 50 Colors of Love. Shivu is a recipient of 2007 Employee Excellence Award in recognition of efforts as an outstanding Synopsys employee and was awarded Distinguished Alumni of MCE in 2018. Dear delegates, if you have traveled to Bangalore or anywhere nearby Bangalore, chances are high that you have paid a visit to Shivu's uncles. That's how. Remember having your breakfast or the filter coffee at any of the darshanis in Bangalore? These are owned by Shivu's family and relatives mostly. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of our program. We feel privileged to have you with us. Thank you very much, Shivu, sir. Now it's over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. First of all, I'm not a businessman. So yes, I have friends and family who own restaurants, but I personally don't own anything. So let me make it clear. I see we have a good number of participants attending. I was told that the majority of you are teaching faculty. We might have few students, of course, in the process. So I have tried to put the material primarily for teachers and professors. I hope it can be useful. The whole idea of this presentation is to give you a high-level overview of design thinking. A lot of people get confused between design and design thinking. And even if you know the definition of design thinking, there are a lot of questions which people ask. How do I really apply this in day-to-day life? How do I apply this in innovation, for example? How do I apply in teaching? How do I apply in research? So the next 60 minutes, I just want all of you to get a very good understanding of design thinking, and you will be the right judge to decide if design thinking process is the right tool which you can apply for your present problem solving solution. Design thinking is not something which can be applied to everything around you. Of course, it has its own scope of influence and where you can apply. You will be the right judge to define if this tool can be used for a particular problem which you might be solving, or for an innovation which you're trying to encourage in your work or in your personal life. So the whole idea is to give you an overview of design thinking, give you the steps which we follow in design thinking, and also give you a couple of examples which will make you appreciate the whole concept of design thinking. Apart from that, there are many different terms which we use. And I think in the introduction also, I saw Madhushri talking about multiple different terminologies. Now, as professors are good at it, we throw a lot of terminologies. Now, if somebody asks, if you have an intelligent student and starts asking you questions, we can be cornered by that, right? What's the difference between, for example, design thinking and critical thinking? What is critical thinking and lateral thinking? What is lateral thinking and business thinking? All of them are very, very different. All of them have a different space and place in how we conduct business. So it's important to understand these differences, and one doesn't replace the other. Just because we have a program on design thinking doesn't mean that's the best tool available out there. As I told you earlier, it all depends on the situation. It's just a toolkit which is given to you. Depending on the situation, depending on the need, you can employ different toolkits, whether it's critical thinking, whether it's design thinking, whether it's lateral thinking, whether it's business thinking. You are the right person to decide which is the right tool which can be employed. Today, our focus will be primarily on design thinking, but at the same time, I'll give you a little bit difference between the design thinking and the lateral thinking and the business thinking, so that you are aware of the differences. So with that, I asked a question. How many of you here have at least heard of design thinking? In India, we are known to pick up on something which is fancy, and suddenly everything will be around that. Last year, everything was around machine learning, right? Anything you do, you might be doing Excel sheet, but you say, what are you working on? I'm working on machine learning. What are you working on? I'm working on AI. That has become a very common terminology, irrespective of what you do. I know people who just do Excel sheets, and if I ask them what you're doing, they'll say, I am working as a data scientist. That's a very unfortunate thing. And I think it's the same thing is happening to design thinking also. Design thinking has been introduced by CBSE in K-12 space right now. 8th standard, 9th standard students have design thinking as a subject. Design thinking has already been introduced in 11th and 12th. Design thinking has been introduced as a subject in multiple MBA colleges. So I don't want you to get carried away and think that this is the future. No, this is just a tool, another tool in your kitty for you to employ this. So as a teacher, it's important for you to understand what design thinking is. So with that, if you really look at, when I ask you, right, I've asked a lot of people, what do you really mean by design thinking? Without getting into definition, without Googling, we get a lot of words from it, right? And these are the words which come out. People say design thinking is about strategy. People say design thinking is about user-centered. People say, this is something which I've heard a lot from Stanford University. This is something I've heard a lot from a company called as IDEO. This is something where, companies in Finland and San Francisco work on. This is a problem-solving tool. This is around design. This is around creativity. This is a process. These are the different words you get. But 3 words which stand out in design thinking is, this is a process, no doubt about it. Process means there is a defined step for us to be an expert in design thinking. So design thinking is not something which you're born with. This is something which you learn. So there is a process for it. And the second thing is, it's a mindset change. You need to really look at the problem and prepare yourself for a change in mindset. That's very, very important in design thinking. And the third one, which is the most important thing, is it's a toolkit. When I say it's a toolkit, means there are different steps you can follow. And with that, you will be able to apply design thinking to the problem which you are trying to solve. So remember these 3 words. I will go through this again. So it is about process, it's about toolkit, and it's about mindset shift. These are the 3 things which should come to your mind when somebody talks about design thinking. So somebody asked, a person in Apple to describe design. The question was, how do you describe design? Now people have.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
Will you share your slides?
Yes, I will be posting the slides after the presentation.
No, we are not able to see the screen now. Please share your screen.
One second. I thought I had shared it. Sorry for that. Can you see the slide?
Yes, sir.
You can see only the slide, right? Not the other things. Photos and other things are not coming.
No.
So this was the slide I was talking about, where, these are the different terminologies. In this slide, what you need to look at is 3 words: process, toolkit, and mindset shift. So there was a question which was asked to the top designer in Apple. How do you describe design? And people tend to write a lot of sentences and words, right? This guy just wrote this design and said, this is design for me. Now, if you notice this picture, it has 3 main components. It has a question mark, which means you're trying to solve something. There is a question in your mind which you're trying to solve. Next, there is a dollar symbol at the end, which means anything can be creative. But if you cannot make a business out of it, then for a company, it doesn't mean anything. So you need to really understand the difference between being creative and being innovative. And here in a business world, innovation is more important than being creative, because, right? Creativity is just the starting point for innovation. But eventually you need to create something which also makes a business sense. So a question mark and a dollar really defines the whole process. And what you see in the middle is the process you follow, which means there is no strict process which can be followed for design. Now, that's what I want you to understand, that design is very different than design thinking. Design is like simple magic, right? Not everybody has design skills. Some of us have greater design skills. Some of us have lesser design skills. Yes, you can learn some part of it, but you cannot become an expert. So it is very, very mysterious. Not many people get into it unless you really have that skill. People don't get into this part of it. So a lot of times people don't get into the design part of it. They tend to move out of design and get into the regular way of thinking. So design is not a prerequisite for design thinking. I just want you to know that. Design is an added advantage if you're a design thinking practitioner. That's one thing which you need to understand. So a lot of times people say, can innovation be taught? Answer is yes. Innovation is not something which is, which is by nature. It can be nurtured. We have in our company also, whether it's, the company I'm working today or the companies I've consulted for, many startups I work with, right? A lot of times they say, we don't have an innovative team. because you've not put the right tools in place, you've not put the right training in place. That's the reason why your team is not innovative, because it is not a nature, it is a nurture. There are many examples of some ideas succeeding and some ideas failing. Why is it that? Everybody is innovative. A lot of people, we see creative solutions around us, but not all of them are successful. What is that other ingredient which they are missing? It's very important to understand. And a lot of times we say, the timing was wrong. Is timing alone the reason for failure, or is there something else? That's things which we need to understand. So definitely innovation is nurture and not nature. We can have a team of people getting trained in innovation. It is not just a great idea. It is a way of doing new things, getting adopted because it solves a real need. One of the primary importance of innovation is, are you trying to solve a problem where the customer really needs the solution? That's the first question you need to ask. You can come out with something where it might be a very, very innovative product, but if it is not solving a customer need, nobody is going to buy it. So you need to understand that part of it. So that's the reason why most of the innovative companies and innovators follow a very defined process. And the leading process which everybody follows is called as design thinking. Again, design thinking is just one of them. Design thinking is not the solution for everything around innovation, but it's one of the greatest tools which I have seen personally, which can really help people put a structure around their innovation cycle so that they can come out with good innovations in their companies or in their career, in their life. Okay, so I hope you understand the difference between design and design thinking. Now, let's dive into design thinking a little bit more, right? So every leader has a power of design thinking, primarily because people can be trained on design thinking. You need to understand how to use it. Usage part of it, nobody can be trained. You need to know when to apply the skill which you have learned, no doubt about it, but the skill can be learned. That's one thing you need to understand. Every leader of innovation in any organization is likely been practicing design thinking all along. Design thinking is just a framework or a definition which we are putting for something people have been doing it for a long time. So this is not a new knowledge. This is not a new skill. It is a structured way of defining what we might have been doing all along the way, right? For example, when I ask you, come out with a program, right? People who might have done this program itself, the first question you usually ask is, what kind of audience will be there? Who are the speakers? And accordingly, you try to come out with the topics. Accordingly, you come out with the timelines. Accordingly, you come out with the structure of the program. What you actually did was a design thinking process. Any process which starts with users is actually design thinking. So as I told you earlier, many of us have been doing it, but we might have not been doing all the different elements of design thinking. We might be doing few elements of design thinking. So this program will help you understand the different elements of design thinking so that you can ask questions to yourself and say, okay, have I met this or not? Have I met this or not? So it will be easier for you to run through the whole process. Many years back, people who are industry practitioners know TQM, right? Total Quality Management was one of the biggest thing which happened for quality. Many companies adopted this. And again, TQM is just a process around quality. People were doing quality checks and ensuring that there is a good process for quality, but they didn't have a standard. TQM actually did that for quality. And a lot of times people say that design thinking will do that for innovation. So design thinking is here to stay. And we will see many, many companies actually adopting and embracing design thinking. So if any of you are looking at being a design thinking practitioner or an expert, I think it's a good time to gain more expertise on this and go deeper in this. So it's as I told you earlier, it's about process, and it's a toolkit which is given to a leader, which will help in increasing the profits by driving innovation. So it is not just a set of principles. It gives you a methodology and it gives you a tool. So it not just defines a framework or a methodology, but also it defines the tools which can be used for some of these things. I will not be getting into the tools part of it right now with the limited time we have, but I will explain the methodology so that it's easier for all of you to understand. Again, it's about empathy, because it's people-centered, human-centered approach. So empathy is very, very important. It's about invention, and it's iterative in nature. These are the three words which you need to remember. It is empathy-based, invention-based, and iterative in nature. So let me put it in a picture so it's easier to understand. So before that, let me give you a little bit more on these three terms which I just talked about, right? Now, what is empathy? Empathy is understanding the customer needs, which means you put yourself in the customer's shoes and try to understand the problem. Once you get into the customer's shoes and try to understand the problem, the definition of the problem itself will be different for you. So it's very, very important for you to have the empathy in you. If you do not have that, it becomes very difficult for you to understand the problem. And sometimes you might be addressing a wrong problem. Let me give you an example on this. Let's say your child comes to you and tells, every night when I sleep, when I try to sleep, it's very chilly. I'm not able to sleep because of the cold. As a parent, the best solution for this is give your child a blanket, and the blanket might solve the problem for the child. But actually what you've done is try to address the problem without actually looking at the subject itself. You're not really asked the right questions to your child to understand why the problem is coming. Now, for example, in this case, it might be because all the windows are open in the night. The wind is actually coming into the room. The easiest thing to do is actually close the windows, right? And not try to get the blanket here. So how can you do this? A simple design thinking process will actually help you get these kind of questions. So it is basically a process wherein you talk to your customer, you talk to the user and understand why that problem is coming. Root cause analysis is slightly different than empathy-based approach. We will not get into that, but it is primarily asking the person, asking the user more and more and trying to understand his needs and wants from his shoes. So that's very important. So to do that, you really have to go deeper and personal and be more customer centric. And you need to understand customer is real person with real problems and not just targets, right? Customer definition of a customer has to be very clear. And that's the reason in design thinking, we use something called as persona. For example, if I'm coming out with a product for educational institutes, for example, the first question I ask is who's the user? And I try to bring the characteristics of that person and create a persona for him. Persona means you actually say he's a 25-year-old male with the name, Satish, and this is his background. This is what he looks like. This is what his wants are. And then you put the whole thing together. So when you're trying to solve the solution, you remember Satish's photo now. You remember the person and try to solve the solution. So it's very, very important to be customer centric. So this kind of approach you can do only if you have empathy. Now, the big example is people who have traveled to US know that there are two bridges, Golden Gate Bridge and San Francisco Bridge. Both actually do the same functionality. Absolutely, take you from point A to point B across the ocean. But everybody remembers San Francisco Golden Gate Bridge and not really the Bay Bridge because of a symbol and what it symbolizes for, right? So there has a lot of empathy and emotions which is attached to the structure. So that makes it a big difference. So that's a whole difference between inventing a product with empathy, inventing a product which is purely for business. So there is a big difference for that. And the invention side, managers who thought like designers actually become the creators. So again, who not every manager is a designer, but every manager can employ the design thinking methodologies. So that's the whole crux of this point here. And it's all about iteration. Now, what do you mean by iterations? You don't get the solution in one go. This is not like a linear problem solving methodology. It's not like you define a problem, you identify various solutions, you find the best solution and implement it and you got it right. That is not what design thinking is. Design thinking is you get a problem, you understand the problem from the user perspective, you come out with multiple solutions, you try out all the solutions actually, and go back to the user and find out if it's working fine. User might say, no, I think you got my requirement itself wrong. So you keep iterating it and then eventually come out with some prototypes and go back to the customer and say, does it work? Customer says, yes, it works. Then you go to the product. If the customer says no, you go back to the process. So this can take a lot of time, right? So